I'm not interested, take me off your list, click. It's a brutal rejection, and it's a common one a lot of new SDRs face, and it can be really deflating when you give them your pitch, you tell them why you're calling, and they just immediately reject you like that. And I think there's a lot of misleading advice on how to handle these situations that's just going to send you down the wrong rabbit hole. So in this video, I'm going to give you 3 simple ways to overcome this so that you don't have to worry about this outcome when making cold calls. So let's get into it. So to start, the reason I think a lot of the advice out there is misleading is because they actually teach you to focus on how to handle the objection, I'm not interested, or things like, take me off your list, how'd you get my number? And what I say is those aren't objections, I consider those rejections. They're rejecting the very premise of the call. So rather than focusing most of your efforts on how to handle the objection, I'm not interested, you should more be thinking, how can I prevent that type of rejection in the first place? It's like having an open wound on your arm and treating it with a little band-aid just to stop the bleeding rather than actually stitching it up and addressing the root cause. Or it'd be like a software company that had customers that weren't renewing. When it came time to renew, they were losing customers and saying, well, what do we say to these customers when they want to leave? Rather, the question they should be asking is, why are they leaving? How do we prevent them from leaving in the first place so that we don't have to handle those types of questions? It's the same thing with these tier 2 rejection type objections like, I'm not interested, take me off your list. And the way to proactively handle that is through your tonality and your language. You want to have an assumptive, downward inflecting tone and speak matter-of-factly and use assumptive language. Tone is over 90% of your communication on cold calls and is going to have a massive impact on whether that prospect says yes or no. 2 reps could say the same thing, the same script with the same structure, but one uses a downward inflecting tone and more assumptive language. They're going to get much better results. It's going to be night and day. And a lot of this is just going to come down to practice and rehearsing behind the scenes. You want to be very comfortable with your cold call script so that it flows out of your mouth. Make sure it's not too long. Make sure it feels comfortable and easy to get out on the call. You don't have to get in every word that you think is important. And then when it comes time to ask for the meeting, rather than saying things like, great, and I was hoping to set up some time next week if you're possibly free, you want to use more assumptive language like, great, I'm looking to set up some time next week to get introduced and aligned on this. Are you free on Wednesday or Thursday? The script could have been the exact same, but that downward inflecting tone with the more assumptive language is going to prevent those objections like, no, I'm not interested, take me off your list. So that is the first technique, is address the root cause and avoid facing it in the first place. All right, next. So no matter how good you get really concise with your script, good, strong, confident tonality, you're still going to get the objection, I'm not interested at times. It's unavoidable. So you do want to be prepared with some form of technique on how to handle this. So a lot of what's taught out there is to use things like labeling or try these cheeky little tricks like not interested and almost throw it back and mirror them. I think that's way overcomplicating it. There's 2 areas you're likely going to hear I'm not interested. One comes at the very beginning of the cold call. This is after you've introduced themselves and told them who you are. A lot of times they'll just immediately be like, I'm not interested. So the strategy here is to just push through it, acknowledge it, and then tell them why you're calling anyway, and just go right into it. Don't even give them a chance to think about it. So I say, hey, this is Connor Murray calling from X company, how are you? And they're like, I'm not interested. I would say, no, I wouldn't expect you to be. I'm just reaching out because, and then I just go right into telling them who I am, why I'm calling, what I want, and let that do the talking. Then they hear my confident, concise tone, and hopefully in their head, they're like, oh, this isn't just a normal cold caller. This is someone who actually might be worth taking a meeting with. So that is how to handle I'm not interested at the beginning of the cold call. The other most common time is after you've given that pitch, who you are, why you're calling, ask for time on their calendar. That's when they give you, I'm not interested. And that should more signal to you, again, like I referred to in the beginning of the video, that you need to work on that script, work on sounding more concise, confident, downward inflecting tone to avoid that as much as possible. But if you still get that, my strategy is to then make them give me what I call a tier 1 objection, which is a legitimate objection. Things like, hey, we don't have the budget right now, or we just don't have the time or bandwidth to take on a project, maybe reach back out down the line. That's a real objection, a quality objection where they've acknowledged what you reached out about and just given you a legitimate reason. I hope you can hear those sound different than things like, I'm not interested, take me off your list. So the way you get them to do that, to give you a tier 1 objection, is to just ask a question with either outcome. So if I gave my pitch and they said, I'm not interested, I would say, got it. Is that because there's no budget for this, or because your team just doesn't have the bandwidth right now? I would try and elicit a real objection out of them and almost forecast the problem, which again is signaling my expertise a little bit, that I'm actually familiar with why people might not want to take on a project right now. But I just want them to give me something more concrete that I can then try and overcome. You can't really overcome simply, I'm not interested. That's where a lot of reps just fold. So I just choose to call out 2 potential outcomes as to why they might not be interested. But the point I'm trying to make in this overarching video is that that's a Hail Mary. The real way to handle I'm not interested is to avoid facing it in the first place. If you handle those things I talked about, like speaking concisely, working on your targeted script so that it actually sounds relevant to them, speaking with that downward inflection, you'll reduce the amount of times you have to deal with that in the first place. So hopefully this gave you a different perspective. Try and avoid it in the first place. And then those are 2 techniques to handle it, whether you face something like that in the beginning of the call or after you give the pitch, something to do when you get it. So hope this helped. If it did, hit the like button and I'll see you on the next one.